day, as the NRM was celebrating 33 years, there was the launch of a 222-page book. Yes, did you miss it? Well, let me show it to you. In regards to it, first of all, it talks about the universal primary education. Now, it is all about transforming Uganda. So this is 222 pages, yes? 222 pages that really do talk about the successes, the challenges of implementing UPE from 1997 to 2017. So for those who thought UPE was a thing of just yesterday, no, please. It said in 1997. So in regards to that, we'll start with the fact that the president looked at education as something they've been able to actually bring to the Ugandan community. Do you agree that UPE has done this?
Yeah, certainly. I think we, first of all, good morning to our viewers. The advent of UPE was informed by a need within our society. And I think way back in 1987, our government appointed an Education Policy Review Commission, which was headed by the late Professor Senteza Kajubi. Some people call it the Kajubi Commission. And it came out with a report in 1989. And that report did recommend that, given the fact that a good number of our people were condemned never to see the inside of a classroom, I think up to about 40% of our children never had an opportunity to access school. One of the major recommendations of that Kajubi report was the democratization of education. And by democratization, emphasis was put on increasing access to education for Ugandan children. And they were looking at the fact that human resource development or investment in human capital is at the center of any country's development.
Right.
And in 1992, government, after studying the recommendations of the Kajubi Commission report, came up with its own white paper, the government white paper of 1992. And in that white paper, government committed to implement a number of reforms within the education sector. Actually, much of education policy we are looking at today derives from the Kajubi report of 1989 and the government white paper of 1992. So that's how UPE comes to be. Although its implementation was not immediate, it started in 1997. And there's a tendency for many people to think that UPE was simply a result of the campaigns of 1996. Because after the presidential campaigns and elections, UPE featured prominently, or education for all, for that matter, featured prominently. And there's a tendency for people to trace it to 1997. But it can be traced way back to 87, the Kajubi Commission, 1992, the government white paper, implementation commencing in 1997. And while government then recognized that it would be massive in terms of the resource requirements to implement such a massive program, the initial recommendation had been that we have 4 children per family. And there was emphasis on the fact that amongst those 4, one should at least be a girl. There's no problem if all of them are girls. But also children with special learning needs were to be accommodated. For any family that had a child with special needs, that child had to benefit within the 4. So that was the minimum requirement for implementing UPE when it was launched in 1998.
Right.
But at the end of the year, our experience as a ministry was that in spite of the limitation that was placed on the 4 children, parents brought to school all children that were eligible. And at the end of the day, it became very difficult on the part of government to chase children away from school on account of the fact that initially we had wanted to take 4. So in the end, they said no, allow all of them into school. Let government battle with mobilizing the requisite resources in order that every child is given an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, it is a battle that we're still seeing the Ministry of Education being involved in, of course, with speculation and allegations that the education system in Uganda is not working as a result of the same. We opened up the opportunity to a majority, but we didn't beef up, you know, the capability or the capacity of the teaching staff. What's your response to that? Because we rightfully see that the ministry is still battling, as you put it.
It's been a gradual process. The journey that this publication tells as we commemorate 20 years of UPE is a journey that is characterized by determination on the part of government, by resilience on the part of government, amidst all the competing demands. I think we must applaud government for sticking in there because of the conviction that there is no other way we are going to achieve the kind of transformation that we expect in this country except by investing in education. It's like those that argue that if anybody thinks that education is expensive and therefore we should abandon it, try ignorance and you see what price you pay as people, as a country. So clearly challenges have been there, but we've seen the country gradually progressing from limited facilities, from limited number of teachers, from limited resources compared to the massive needs that the sector requires, and over the years. And that is the story actually that is told by this publication.
Okay.
As a ministry, we thought if we told this story ourselves, maybe the skeptics would say, what would they say? They are trying to paint a rosy picture. So we said, no, let somebody go out there, pick the facts, and present them to the public. What was the situation like in terms of the children enrolled in school when UPE was launched? And the story is told that we have moved from 3 million children to now 8 million children.
Right.
We've seen the stock of classrooms increase from what it was then. We at one point had a pupil classroom ratio, depending on which part of the country you are looking at, of up to 200 children in a single classroom. Over the years, government has provided resources. We have constructed schools, we have constructed classrooms. To this very day, we are still commissioning new schools that have been constructed. The very recent case I can cite primary schools that have been constructed. 54 were commissioned, another 84 are being commissioned, altogether 118, in addition to the stock of schools that we had. Secondary schools are being constructed.
Right.
We have recently mobilized resources. So the point I'm making, even the stock of teachers has increased over the years. Pay, as you know, government has consistently been reviewing the salary structure for teachers and at all levels. So in a way, I would say that it's not an event, it's a process.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you speak of the process, now in regards to the 222-paged book, the president did say this, and we're also going to have a listen to what he has said in regards to UPE. Now he says, from my experience as a battle-tested and battle-hardened freedom fighter, I strongly believe that it is in the best strategic interest of the country to have some education for all than education for some. That is what the president writes. Now he also went ahead to liken UPE to the biblical mustard seed, insisting that the seeds planted in 1997 have sprouted into the development of Uganda, for Uganda and beyond. But take a listen to what the president also talked about still.
We spend so much money on UPE, so much money on USE, yet schools, government schools are charging. And you find some children are out of school, tossed around. We spend so much money on UPE, so much money on USE, yet schools, government schools are charging. And you find some children are out of school.
Now that brings us to the challenges that UPE is actually facing at this point in time. Yes, there has been some increment here and there in regards to the numbers from 3 million to about 8 million. Over 8 million pupils now are part of the universal primary education. The president does talk about the fact that they're spending money, but still the schools are charging.
Of course, the whole idea behind UPE was for government to take responsibility of the tuition requirements in order that a child accesses school without the constraint that parents were facing of raising the ever-increasing fees. But at the same time, the roles of the different stakeholders were clearly mapped out at the very beginning, with government taking responsibility for financing, providing grants to the schools that will help them to operate, providing instructional materials, the books, the textbooks. Government has been providing these, as well as construction of the infrastructure within the UPE schools, and then providing the teachers and paying for their salaries. But at the same time, parents retained also certain responsibilities. And this is where I think in terms of the challenges, when we discuss this later, one would be interested in knowing how well each party, education is a partnership.
Right.
And the first responsibility, I think, lies squarely on the parent. Before this child becomes a responsibility of the state, I would think that any parent would equally be interested in the welfare of this child, and government expected that parents would bring their children to school, but bring them in a shape that enables them to learn. They must be healthy.
And of course, that was a conversation that took center stage last year, of course, with the Minister of Education saying that parents need to cater for the, food of their own children, so to speak. But the question has been, we have tried to traverse the country, and just the other day I was in Tororo, and we were talking to some of the head teachers there, and they were saying that, you know what, the numbers at some point dwindle because these children cannot sustain, staying in school throughout the day, because number one, the parents have not been sensitized enough on the need to send their children to school with some food, so to speak. So has the ministry, as much as the ministry is saying that, you know what, it is your responsibility, and we know in the rural areas mindset is a big thing. So has the ministry gone a step further, maybe to sensitize the parents on the need of sending their children with food to school, so to speak, because the numbers ideally on the ground are dwindling?
For all the years, I don't think, first of all, the numbers are dwindling, because I've said for 20 years, from 3 million, we are now at 8 million. So that does not indicate
in some regions it
that numbers. Yes, in some cases,
regions it is.
I agree. Some parents have not been very responsible, and they expect that government should take full responsibility for the welfare of their children, the health of their children, what they put on when they are coming to school, what they eat. And yet it was very clear that given the magnitude of the challenge of UPE that government was taking on, government never committed from the very beginning to do everything, including bathing the children, including ensuring that they are healthy at the time they come to school, including the fact that they should have had some breakfast before they are brought to school by the parents.
Then whose role is it to sensitize the parents?
We have been doing that. We have been doing that from the very beginning for the last 20 years. But clearly you've said there could be a mindset problem where people think that government, in committing to provide free education for the children, then committed also to provide everything that the children need. We'll continue engaging with the local leaders, we'll continue engaging with communities. The First Lady and Minister of Education last year conducted a countrywide tour and engaged leadership at local level, engaged with parents where she was able to address rallies, to remind them of this responsibility. And I find it really unacceptable, even as a parent in my own right, even if I was not working for government or for the Ministry of Education and Sports, and I'm a parent. How can I expect that I can surrender my own child to government for everything that that child needs for purposes of his or her growth and development?
Let's jump into the conversation on the quality of education, because that's where a lot of talk actually, you know, gets through. Now, just the other week we were releasing the PLE results, and there were issues that came up. Number one, people are speculating that, you know what, the quality has really gone down. It's been a conversation, always has been a conversation. Even business captains themselves are concerned. We do have a lot of conferences here that we are a part of as a media house, and many business captains say that, you know what, the education system needs to be overhauled, and we need to change it into embracing practical skills as opposed to the cramming, so to speak. So the question is, do you think UPE, and I'll need your honest answer, UPE has become more of a curse, so to speak, than a blessing to the country of Uganda based on the quality of education being, quote unquote, not up to standard?
I think there are all indications that UPE is a blessing to this country. The argument over quality at times is not put into correct perspective, because it depends on what one defines quality to be. If by quality they mean every child passing in Division 1, then yes, they would be justified that not all children are passing in Division 1, but which is also humanly not possible. But quality should be appreciated in its totality, in its entirety. And what are we talking about? I mean, when educationists define quality, they are looking not only at the end result, but they are looking at the inputs, first of all, into the process. Are the schools provided by government? Are they provided probably in the numbers required? Are these schools accessible? Are they within reach to the children, to the parents, so that a kid does not have to walk 20 kilometers to the next primary school? And that's what informs government's policy on having a primary school at least per parish, so that these schools are accessible. Okay, and we are consistently working towards that. The teachers provided?
That's another question.
Yes.
Are they provided?
As we can talk about now, that's one of the challenges that we're going to get into, which is teacher absenteeism, because all of these have been highlighted by the First Lady herself within this book. Now, one of the things she mentions, which we need to talk about, is yes, the numbers do stand at 3 million from when it started out, and now it's at over 8 million. But one thing she has raised is the fact that they never get to complete till primary 7. Some of them are dropping out. Is it on the quality? Because yes, you say it's a partnership, the parents should be able to help, but also the government we need to talk about in regards to the grants, because as of now, government has 10,000 Uganda shillings per pupil. With the inflation going on, with all the issues in our economy, 10,000 is what they started out with. Sincerely, we're in 2019. At least there should have been a change in the amount of money given by the government per pupil.
You know, that's precisely the point I was making, that when we make the argument on the issue of quality, we are looking at the inputs. What is it that everybody is putting in terms of the different stakeholders? Government on the one hand, you have the local authorities, because primary education, as you know, in Uganda is a decentralized service. Is everybody doing his or her part? Are the teachers available? Are they teaching? Are the head teachers in charge of their schools? Are they present, or we have absentee head teachers? Are the children themselves present? Do they report every day to school? And then at the end of the day, the teaching, learning process itself. And school, is the environment around the learning of the children, Is it conducive enough? Is it accommodating? If you have the girl not catered for in terms of her unique requirements and needs, and she then must drop out of school, then we are now discussing the bigger question of quality. If children with special learning needs or with special needs find school inconvenient for them, they cannot easily move, they are discriminated and so on and so forth, it touches on the question of quality. So that at the end of the day, what you see now emerging out of this whole process will be reflective of what kind of environment you have in place and whether it supports teaching and learning. So I agree, we still have a challenge of teacher presence at school, teacher attendance. And this is something we are battling with as a ministry, as a sector, because we have provided the teachers, yes. The numbers, I think if you look at this publication, it traces the numbers of teachers from when UPE was launched to where we are at the moment. The stock has increased. In relation to the growing numbers of the pupils, as well.
Okay, let's look at this particular, kind of question very practically, and I will need your honest view as well again on this one. Do you have confidence in the quality of education in the country, given that we have high unemployment rates and yet a majority have gone through school? We have investors coming through, but they still cry foul saying that it is hard to get, human capital that can handle big roles, so to speak. And we have expatriates being brought in. Are you confident that the current quality of education is something that you can stand up and be proud of, being part of the Ministry of Education, with all these factors that are also coming into play?
I think we could still do better in that particular regard, because you're also judging quality of education in terms of the relevance of that kind of education. And that's why our curriculum experts are continuously reviewing, studying to see what aspects of our education needs maybe tweaking, needs improvement. The problem might not be the content itself. The problem could be the methodology, the way that content is delivered. If it's delivered in the manner in which it's done largely at the moment, and which explains the performance you are seeing and the craze over the Division 1s and the aggregate 4s, then it means there's going to be a lot of emphasis on knowledge transfer, knowledge development, that children are expected to take in as much knowledge as possible, because the assessment system is going to test them on how much of that knowledge they've taken in and how much they are able to put on paper. And at the end of the day, that has its own problems, because like you rightly said at the beginning, education is also about skills. It's also about competencies. It's also about learning to do. What is it that this learner, in addition to the knowledge he or she possesses in his or her head, what is it that she can do with that knowledge?
So how soon are we going to see some of these changes in the curriculum?
They are taking place. They are taking place. The primary education curriculum has continuously been reviewed with the view to strengthening the element of skills development. The secondary education curriculum, you might have heard, has already been reviewed. What remains now is mobilizing the resources required to start preparing the teachers, to procure the materials that we require to deliver that curriculum. There has been a delay actually as far as the implementation of the secondary education curriculum is concerned. And there has been discussion and negotiations back and forth with key stakeholders. But I can say with certainty that very soon we'll be rolling out a new secondary education curriculum, which is a response to some of the challenges that we are pointing out. Because we would like to get graduates out of our system that do not only have knowledge, that do not only talk like I'm doing, but have the ability to do things, have the ability to innovate, to create, and so on and so forth.
So as we talk about the fact that education is going to be changing within the country, I would like each and every one of you that's watching, each and every one of you that has a smartphone, how about use the hashtag Morning at NTV? Because in regards to the quality, things are going to be better with regards to UPE. I mean, over 20 years. Would you now rather have your child go to a UPE school or take them to a private school? Because a number of people have had this argument after the PLE results were released, that they were discriminated in regards to the top schools being marked, and they had said that from now on, and this is what a parent, he's called, I'm going to just say, he's called Dr. William Maega. He went to Facebook and said perhaps our children should from now on go to private schools till P6, and then from P6 they're taken on to one of the UPE schools because their marking will be different. So go to the platform, which is Morning NTV Uganda, and
the director should allow us to get that response from.
But also you can be
him.
able to answer that question. Would you think that is the way to go? Because I mean, the UPE quality is now changing. So
I think the premise on which you said Dr. Maega?
Dr. William Maega.
Yes, I've seen the social media debate on the issue of performance within the UPE and non-UPE schools. But as I said, that premise is false, because what happens when you shift to the other schools because you think that's where the 4 is? And like I said, if everybody is chasing 4s and you don't get the 4s there, where do you go next?
So you're saying it's a false allegation?
It's certainly false. It's certainly false. And I read some of the arguments in there are quite ridiculous. I mean, when you say this is a deliberate policy on the part, or move on the part of the Ministry of Education and UNEB to make sure that performance in UPE schools is perceived to be better than in the non-UPE schools. But at the same time, they are saying Kampala has been undermarked. Yes. But the policymakers, the examiners, the teachers who mark these examinations are drawn from Kampala.
Okay, so it's a false allegation.
It is certainly false.
Another question, just a yes or a no. Are your children in public schools or private schools?
Both.
Both?
Yes.
Okay.
Both.
Why private?
As I said,
them that are in private, why did you choose private?
It depends. As I said, there are issues of proximity, depending on
every parish
stays.
has a public school, so to speak.
No, not yet. That's why I say
it's
that
set to be done.
Yes, we are moving towards that.
So your choice was based on proximity?
It's based on proximity.
Not on the quality?
Because it also burdens the kid. If you are staying in a locality and you must drive miles away from where you are to take a kid to school, when the education that can be accessed within your vicinity is the same.
So it's proximity, not quality.
Both.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we've agreed. If we are not defining quality in terms of aggregate 4, then all these schools have an element of quality in terms of what they do.
Okay. Now, as it stands, thank you so much, Mr. Agret Chibenge, for joining us this morning. As it stands for each and every one of you who is watching, how about use your smartphone and be a part of the conversation? Would you now take your child to a UPE school because of proximity? Also because of quality? Well, that has been the conversation this morning. UPE, the Universal Primary Education, Transforming Uganda, launched this past weekend, and I must say the successes and the challenges of the UPE have been recorded. Keep it morning at NTV. The conversation still goes on.
Watching Morning at NTV.
I'm called Dabiko Siama, all the way from Tororo. I'm an Airtel Money agent, and I've just won $1 million shillings from Airtel Money promotion of Better Millionaire. It is real. And to use Airtel Money, you only need to dial *185# and you do your transactions. You can deposit, withdraw money, send money to other numbers, and you'll be a winner.